Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy. Above My Head by OK Classroom 2114. When I first heard it, it scared me. The scratching, a soft, scraping sound echoing in the silence of my darkened bedroom right above my head. It would barely be audible during the morning. I was on my computer or reading a book, but at night, it was the only sound I could hear. As I laid under my covers, the sheets pulled as far as possible in order to take in as much warmth as I could, I would still be shivering. All because of that damn scratching. The soft raking, to me, sounded like rats scurrying, devouring a scrap of food. It made bedtime tense, unnerving. I feared, if I even so much as glanced up to see what it was, a monster would attack me and tear me apart in grisly fashion. Ultimately, this fear was irrational. One night, I finally gained the courage to take a glance. Slowly, I lifted myself from my pillow, cautiously turning around to take a peek. Immediately, any fear I felt evaporated when I saw what the source of the scratching was. It was the warning label attached to the end of the string for the blinds in my bedroom. Wind from my ceiling fan was lightly blowing on it, making it brush against the wall as the string stretched down past the blinds. I felt so dumb. I was already in high school, and a fucking piece of plastic raking along a wall scared me. I really was a wuss. After that, the scratching became a sort of comfort to me. Now what I knew what I was, the unknown part, something that is considered scary by most of humanity, was no longer unknown. It was familiar, a sound I was used to. I began to find it soothing, and it comforted me. And it would begin to find my eyes growing heavy. As I laid in bed, my mind blank, listening to scratching and the whirring of my ceiling fan, letting their combined noise lull me into sleep. It was nice. One night, as usual, I laid in bed, the covers pulled up to my chin, my ceiling fan blaring and the scratching doing its thing. As I felt myself about to go under, the scratching stopped. That wasn't usual. I don't know what the reason was, but I'm sure the fan wouldn't be hitting it with its wind at every single moment. Maybe my pillow blocked it? Maybe the wind sometimes didn't hit it in the right place? Something like that. Soon, though, the scratching started up again, as it always did. Right when I could feel the process of going to sleep coming to completion, I realized something. There was something different about the scratching. Usually, it was slow, closer to light raking. It was also quiet, only being audible to me, due to how silent it was in my bedroom at night. Now, though, it was louder, more erratic. Not only that, but it seemed to be increasing in volume, becoming more and more grating. No longer did it sound like a scurrying rat. It now sounded like someone was scraping a knife along the wall. Alarmed, I threw off my covers, flipping onto my stomach to see two long, bony gray arms, one gripping the warning label in its hand to keep it in place, the other breaking its sharp, almost knife-like nails along the drywall of the wall near my head, leaving deep scratches. The end. Cursed Melody, Echoes of Madness by Lazy Roamer. In a small, quiet town, an abandoned antique shop stood shrouded in ominous fog, beckoning to passers-by with a silent, chilling allure. Intrigued yet unnerved, a young woman named Lily entered the decrepit store, where an ancient hag with sunken eyes awaited her. The withered woman offered Lily a peculiar-looking music box, warning her it held a cursed tune. Ignoring the warning, Lily bought the box, and as she wound the mechanism, a haunting melody oozed out like whispers from the grave. The tune's sinister power was beyond comprehension. It unlocked buried traumas, pulling Lily into a nightmarish world where malevolent spirits tormented her with haunting visions and maleficent apparitions. The music box's curse took hold, distorting reality and leaving Lily trapped in an unending descent into madness, where there was no escape from the relentless terror that lurked within the cursed melody. I'm blind, and that sucks sometimes. I was not born blind. I used to see the bright colors of flowers decorate my room with things I thought looked cute. Now, slowly, my vision is disappearing. The doctors told me I can still see 10% right now, and that means mainly shapes. When it's dark, I cannot see anything. My father works in healthcare as a nurse, and my mom is a 911 operator, which means long hours for them and me spending time alone in our house. It is not a large house, but it is not tiny either. I know every corner of the house and move around the house as if I'm not visually impaired. When I was around the age of 21, I am now 23, I was diagnosed with glaucoma. It took around a year for me to go almost completely blind, but I have learned to live with it. I work in education and I am still able to teach all of the 7-year-old kids in my class. They ask me lots of questions and I don't mind answering them at all. If anything, I enjoy answering those curious little minds. The following happened in summer break. My parents were both working a late night shift and I was hanging out with my friend, Tiara. Usually when she comes over, she stays for a long time. She's like the only person I can tolerate for more than 24 hours. If you know, you know. We both finished watching and listening to our favorite series, both tired from binge watching and a few tears left on our cheek because of the sad ending of it. Shortly after, she left and I went to clean up. I left the remaining popcorn for me to eat as I put on a podcast to listen to while loading the dishwasher. I heard a chime from my phone and Siri reading the message Tiara sent. I'm home. Good night and thanks for the fun day. I smiled and my podcast continued. The podcast talked about strange disappearances a few towns over, labeling it as a cold case. I huffed as the disappearances are still happening, thus I do not think the case is that cold yet. I turned off the kitchen lights and moved my way through the hallway towards the living room, and I let myself fall back onto the comfy couch, reaching for the bowl of popcorn when my phone chimed again. Siri read the message that came from the security app. Person detected backyard, the voice of the app said. I frowned my brows. Is Tiara back? Or maybe it is a squirrel. Most of the times, the system thinks those are persons too. I waved it off as being a squirrel and went back to listening to my podcast while shoving handfuls of popcorn in my mouth. About 2 minutes later, my phone chimed again, and again the voice said that there was a person detected in the backyard. I turned my podcast off and listened, hoping I would hear footsteps or anything. I asked Siri my battery percentage, and when he mentioned it as 40%, I was slightly relieved. Phone in my hand, I made my way back to the glass window, listening closely, but not being able to see anything in the pitch dark. The lights of the living room reflected. I leaned my ear against the glass, hoping to hear anything. But what I heard was a soft breath hitting the glass. I gasped and jumped back. I must just be imagining things. The phone chimed again, the voice mentioning a person in the backyard again. I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to look, hoping I might see someone. For the first time since my blindness, I cursed my lack of sight. I cupped my hands against the glass, looking. Someone was looking straight back at me. The reflection of the living room lights lit up the whites of his eyes. I screamed and fell back down. I grabbed my phone, calling 911 immediately. The door wriggled and I heard my breathing quicken. 911, what's the address of your emergency? A soft female voice I recognized as my mother's. I tried to be calm. Honestly, I tried. But as soon as I heard my mother's voice, I was hysterical. Mom, there's someone in the backyard, trying to break into the house. My voice was shaking and I felt tears streaming down my face. There was a few seconds of silence, which honestly felt like minutes. Honey, I got the police sent to our place. Can you hide? She asks in a calm voice. Yes, I'll try. I swallowed the lump in my throat and got up. The lights got off. Shit. Mom, I cried, now completely blind and scared for my life. What happened, honey? Keep talking, she said. I heard panic in her voice, but she tried to hide it. I reached for my AirPods, and after seconds of panicked searching, I found them. I put one in my ear and put the phone down on the front of my pants. Now I had my hands free to feel around. It was like I completely forgot what our house looked like. The light turned off. I can't see anything, Mommy, I said. I remember trying to open my eyes, in hope that I could see more if I opened them wide enough. "Okay, honey, where were you last?" she asks. "Living room," I replied softly. "Okay." I heard the ticking of her keyboard, noting everything down I said. "Try to reach a wall and feel your way to the doorway. Take an immediate right and go up the stairs." I frantically feel around, feeling the wooden door frame and pulling myself around the corner. I felt for the stairs, and once I felt them, I rushed upstairs. That's when I remembered I did not lock the front door after Tira left the house. Fuck. "Mom, I have to lock the front door," I said, panicking my voice as I said it. "Honey, don't. Just hide. Police will be there in 7 minutes," she said. But I didn't listen. I have to lock the front door. I turned around and rushed down the stairs. Knowing where I was and adrenaline kicking in, I was faster than ever before. My phone chimed. The app's robotic voice was a horror in my ear. "Person detected, front door." I walked to the side of the door frame, feeling around for the doorbell system and pressing the little microphone button. "Please leave me alone," I said in a shaky voice. "What are you doing, honey? Go upstairs, please," my mom said in a panic. "Please leave me alone," I screamed with a hoarse voice. "Why?" A man's voice was clear as day through the speakers. Surprise caught me as I had not expected this person to talk back. "There's nothing here for you to steal. Please go away," I said. "Honey, lock the door," my mom yelled in my ear. "Who says I want to steal something?" I heard the grin on the man's face as he spoke. I locked the doors and activated the alarm. A quick "done" left my mouth. "Good, now go upstairs," my mom said hastily. I took a breath of relief and turned around, ready to hide upstairs, when the man's voice came through again. "The question remains, though." He stopped talking, and I stopped walking. "Did you just lock me in or out?" If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy. Wings. I had bought a huge patch of land with an old farm on it. The price was not a concern since all I had was money. Eventually, I took down the barns and shed, did the renovations myself, which took a year or so to do, added more rooms and a side to the house which gives it a bigger look. I was satisfied with the whole thing, and once I knew I was completely finished, I had a party of maybe 10 friends come over. We had a barbecue with plenty of drinks and loud music on the deck with cool lanterns. I was set for life and prepared to enjoy it. The land I purchased stretched past the tree line, which was maybe 100 meters both ways. It wasn't bad. Nighttime was relaxing, and sometimes if the night is right, the mood would shine up the landscape so it's not as dark as it would be. My friends and I sat on the grass with lawn chairs where I had made a huge fire pit. The flames could be almost 10 feet. The view would be incredible. As we sat around the fire talking amongst each other, laughing with beer bottles clanking, I noticed one of my female friends looking hard over her shoulder towards the trees, and she points, "What's that over there?" I shrugged it off and told her it's probably one of the horses that got free from the farm down the road. It was a common thing, and they would be around to collect it usually, so we didn't take a second look. As we were laughing over ourselves, we heard an ear-piercing sound fill the air which sounded much louder than anything anyone here has ever heard, followed by the sound of galloping footsteps. I got my friends on the deck as I went to inspect just what was happening, and the sound of horses could be heard running around in my open area. One of my friends comes running through with a few flashlights I had stored in my shed, and 4 of us went to inspect what was happening. We found that the horses from the farm down the road were running in circles around my land, and it just didn't seem normal to me. One of my friends got knocked down as one was passing, and it was just chaos as we all ran around. It seemed like they were just circling us. That was far from what was really happening. After a few seconds of collecting what was going on and seeing these horses running in all directions, I see a pair of headlights coming down the road and running over onto the grass in our direction, and comes to a complete stop as we turn to see the horses running away from the car's lights. I see my neighbor step out from the car yelling at us, "Get in the house, now!" I instruct my friends to run for the house as I ran up to my neighbor and asked him what's going on. He looks at me with a serious look in his eye. You didn't see it yet, have you? I looked at him confused. See what? He took out his phone and turned on his Ring camera app. He begins to play a video of his barn, and I'll be damned to say that what I saw was something out of a movie, a horror movie. The video showed restless horses in their stables and suddenly all of them breaking down. Not sure how, but one after another. All but one made it out, and what came on the screen next was some kind of monster. It looked the size of a human being, but the eyes were glowing a white or yellowish shine. Another one came into view, flapping its wings and closing them as it kind of hopped into view. What I can see was that these things had started to eat and tear away at one of my neighbor's horses, and when they were done, they went on and chased the others, which ended up on my land. We sat in the car as we saw a few horses run past. I, of course, was still in disbelief from the footage. Obviously, with my neighbor holding a shotgun, he went after the things, and to gather up his horses. I got out of the car and sprinted back towards my house. As I was just nearing the deck, I heard a scratching sound above my head, and with panic I shined my flashlight upward, which was the stupidest move I could ever do, and there it was. The eyes were round and oval, just a bit wider than a human's, and there was what looked like no mouth. The head was like a heart shape, and the entire body was skinny, brown and grayish, with its wings folded behind its back, sitting perched and observing me like it was curious. I froze in fear, staring at this thing with my light shined into its reflecting eyes. I quickly gathered myself together and ran inside as quick as I could, with all my friends gathering around me, asking what happened out there. I couldn't see a thing for a few minutes because I knew they were sure as heck wouldn't believe a word I would say, since we were all kind of drunk from the beers. I told them that the horses just escaped and some wolves were chasing them, and of course they bought it, except for one of my friends. After that weekend, I hardly spoke to anyone for a few months, and I did more work on the house, which it didn't need. I just wanted to keep myself busy, I guess. I got a text along with a picture with the words, "I seen it too," under it, and looked to see the very same thing I've seen that night. My friends had taken a picture of the kitchen window and this thing looking inside of the house. Those eyes is what haunts me, because when this thing looks at you dead on, you know it's thinking and has something of an intelligence to it with a deep fear it gives off. Nothing has happened since then, and I sure hope it won't, because if anything at all, I'll consider selling my land for cheap just so I don't have to see those eyes ever again. Don't let her in. Living in a small town nearly in the middle of nowhere, nothing ever really happens. Quiet and boring, with the occasional fair stopping by for a week, and gone just like that. There were some other festivals that the town has, just to keep things interesting, but I guess it's alright here. One evening, my mother had planned to go out with a few friends as I stayed home playing video games and watched the dogs since they were always biting at the furniture, so basically I was a babysitter. I was in the living room playing online games with my headset on, yelling and cursing at friends, how any gamer would. As I was playing, I just so happened to lift my headset off to one side to listen to the dogs, making sure I didn't hear anything suspicious. And then I heard a faint knock, thinking maybe the dogs did push something over. I got up and looked around and found them sleeping in the back room where their beds were, and seeing everything was normal for the most part. I started back to the living, and that's when I heard the knock at the back door. I thought to myself, who the hell can that be? I slowly approached the door and put my hand on the handle and nearly opened it till the knocking happened once more. The door handle started to jiggle and the knocking started to become more frequent, like someone was in a panic to get in. I yelled, "Who's there?" And the voice of my mother replied, "Honey, it's me. Let me in. You there? Let me in, sweetie." I was just about to unlock the door, thinking maybe she forgot her keys, but that's when I realized that she never calls me honey or sweetie. She was always a stern, stubborn person, and that was just her personality, but hearing her call me those names was unusual. I waited a few seconds while still hearing the knocking and the sweet names from whoever this was. It continued as the handle shook more vigorously as the knocks turned to banging, but the tone of voice remained the same. I began to get a cold chill down my spine while the door shook harder and harder, listening to this thing trying to get into the house from the back door. Mom never used the back door ever, since she always parked the car in the front driveway, which prompted me to look outside the front window, and to my surprise, her car had just started to pull in. I waited till she finally approached the door and pulled her in as quickly as I could. She obviously got mad, but I quickly shushed her to listen. "The hell is that?" We slowly went to the back door and I whispered, "Listen." As she leaned in at the shaking door, and the shock on her face was a face she had never made before. The look of horror hearing her own voice talking through the door made all the blood from her face drain pale white. We stood there as the banging sounded like it was throwing his entire body against the door with hard force. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet as my mother was on the phone with local police, while we heard her voice, still calling out to me. Trying to peek out the side window, but all we could see was a dark figure with somewhat gray hair. This went on for another 10 minutes when my mom had finally had enough since the police put her on hold. She presses her shoulder against the door as I was holding the bar ready to swing if it did make its way inside somehow. My mother took a deep breath and replied in a loud, stern tone of voice, "Whoever or whatever the hell you are, you will leave or I will be forced to defend this house with excessive force." And just like that, the sudden banging and talking stopped. There was an eerie silence for a few seconds, and heard the sound of what sounded like nails scratching against the door moving downward, and the thing that pretended to be my mother changed its voice in a whisper, "9." And it went quiet once more. We both ran to the window and seen whatever it was, walking away back into the dark. There's nothing back there but heavy bushes and trees that stretch for 10 miles into nowhere. My mom talked to the police, but not long after, and even warned neighbors across the fields about what just happened and to be wary of whatever it was out there. It never came back after that one incident, and no other troubles happened, which was a good thing, because I can't imagine what it was at the back door calling out to me to open the door. Some of the townspeople have claimed that our area was a place where a witch used to live just past the tree line, but nothing was ever found. It just makes me wonder and fear if the stories were true, but finding out is something I'm not going to venture into. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As the no-faced man. Hello, my name is Zen, and this is my story. At a very young age, I used to have dreams, like everyone else. Some would be scary, some would be happy. Something was different and not normal. I wasn't asleep. But was I awake? Yes, I was awake. It's hard to explain, but I was awake while in my dream. Some people would call this an abnormal state of increased responsiveness to stimuli that is marked by various physiological and psychological symptoms. At least that's all I can find about it. Anyway, in these dreams, I just seem to be awake and able to move. Not in real life, but in the dream. I can walk around and be in control of my dream in that mental state. The dream I had recently was of a staircase. I walked up the stairs, and I took my time enjoying the dream. When I reached the top, I remembered that I've had this dream before. I looked around in the empty room, and I saw a man. This man was very tall, and it's like those cartoons where the face is cut off. But this person was faceless. I told this man, "I've been in this dream before. Who are you?" Then I woke up. I've had this dream many times after that, and it actually the most recent one I remember looking up at the man's face. Finally, it was like scratched out and glitching. Lockdown. I was 15 when this happened. I was in high school, and I went to class and sat down when my teacher said, "Wow, Dan, I love your hair." I used to have black hair, but now it's dyed blonde. Thanks, Mr. Smith. During class time, I asked the teacher if I could use the restroom. He said yes, and I saw my friend Tiffany. I said hi, and we both started walking to the restroom, but then all of a sudden an announcement came over the intercom. It was the principal. His voice was so shaky as he announced that the school had been placed on lockdown. At first, me and Tiffany thought this was a joke, but then all the lights turned off. We got scared and hid in the stalls in the bathroom. We heard someone enter the bathroom humming creepily, almost exactly like the humming in the movie Truth or Dare. And then the humming stopped, and we heard the person say, "I know you're in here. Come on out." And then before I could move, the man opened my stall because I forgot to lock it. He then pinned me to the ground and sliced my arm, my stomach, and my leg, and I screamed in pain. But then I saw Tiffany pull out her pepper spray, and she pushed him away from me. She yelled, "Choke on this, bitch," and she sprayed the man in the face. He screamed in pain and fell to the floor, rubbing his eyes, and I had to hold on to Tiffany because I was injured. We made it outside and saw the police. They arrested the man, and I was rolled into an ambulance, and Tiffany came along, and so did my teacher. When we got to the hospital, my parents came and hugged me. After a few days passed, I recovered from my wounds, but then I heard people talking about my best friend, Adam. It turns out that the man broke into his class and shot everyone in the classroom. I burst into tears and went to his funeral. I hugged my girlfriend while crying. She hugged me back. Since then, nothing else happened at my school. My night shift. I haven't worked another night shift after this. It all started when I first worked at McDonald's. After about a week of working, I was put on a night shift by my boss. I arrived at McDonald's with 3 more employees named Spencer, Sophia, and Nick. We were all friends, but Spencer was my boyfriend, and yes, I am a female. Spencer was mopping the floor. I was cleaning the tables, and Nick was cleaning the restroom. And Sophia was taking out the trash. But before she did, a man knocked on the door and said, "Are you open?" "No, sorry, sir," Spencer said. He looked at us with a smile and said okay, then left. I was creeped out by him, but Sophia asked, "Hey Nancy, can you come with me to take out the trash, please?" She gets paranoid easily, and I understood. So I went with her. As she was putting the trash bag in the trash can, the man came out from behind us and grabbed Sophia, and she started screaming. I said, "Wait, I'll be right back." I ran to my locker and into my purse to retrieve my taser and pepper spray. I arrived just in time and tased the man in the balls and pepper sprayed him in the eyes. He began screaming and fell holding his private part, and me and Sophia ran inside, locked the doors, and called the police. They arrived shortly and arrested the man. It turns out he was a serial killer known for murdering 5 teenage girls. Since then, I never worked another night shift ever again. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As always, I find these stories that I read to you from different subreddits on the Reddit website, and I always leave a link in the description, so that way, instead of watching the gameplay for the video, you can read along if you would like to. That said, let's get into the video. I always wear iron. Grams told me bedtime stories about the Fae, not about princess and pumpkin carriages like other kids got. The fairies around here, they have teeth. That's why Grams raised me. Mom and Pop, they used to live here too. Not much besides the farmhouse and lots of trees. There was a storm coming. Mom and Pop brought the cows in early, but one was missing. Pop went to go find it. When he didn't come back, Mom went looking. Grams says they would have come home if they could have. But the Fae around here are hungry things. My Grams, she wasn't about to let me make the same mistake. She fashioned an iron necklace, just like she wears, and I never take it off. Mom and Pop, they thought it was just superstition, but they're gone now. Grams is getting old. Some days she can't leave her bed, so it's up to me to keep the farm running, up to me to check the traps, up to me to go hunting. We don't have cows anymore, not as many anyway, just a few for fresh milk. The rest we had to sacrifice. The Fae were getting too close to the farmhouse, and Grams, she's done her best to hold the line, but it's taking its toll on her. That's why we rely on iron now. Iron and blood to keep the perimeter. The way's so familiar, I can walk it with my eyes closed. 100-foot boundary around the farm, fashioned from bear traps and sacred rites. There used to be other farms, more people, lots of animals. They wouldn't have tried a boundary like this back then, but things got rough. Most of the old families sold off their livestock and moved. Suddenly, there weren't enough warm-blooded creatures to feed the Fae. They got hungrier and hungrier. The thing about being immortal is, no matter how hungry you get, you can't die. First trap I check is triggered, but empty. They do that. They're clever things, some of them. Still can't cross the boundary. Just makes more work for me. I reset the trap and keep going. don't like leaving ramps too close to the dark. The second trap holds something thin and spindly. I can count its ribs. Its yellow eyes go wide at the sight of me. It spits and furiously gnaws at its leg. I stand and watch. I've been waiting for this. The snap of bone is my only warning before the face streaks off, faster than any mortal despite its bleeding stump. But I have my own surprises. The snarl that rips through the woods sends the face jittering, looking back over its shoulder in disbelief. They always do, not used to being prey. They always fall victim to stupid mistakes. The air gives me time to catch up. Its body is brittle under my hands, its throat bitter under my teeth. Copper warmth washes into my mouth as I bite and rip. The creature goes limp in my grasp. My work is not yet finished. I carry the dead fate to a ritual site, the ones that's gone unquenched the longest. The thing's blood coats me as I sling its corpse onto the ground, arranging its limbs inside the carved sigil. The iron medallion dangles from my throat, growing warm in approval as I disembowel and dismember the body. Inscribed on the coin's surface is a goat's head with curving horns and 3 eyes. His image, at least the one he chose to wear when my grandma summoned him, all those years ago. "He'll keep us safe," she'd said as she slipped the medallion around my neck. "So long as we keep him fed. He keeps his own." I certainly hope so. Wiping my hands on my stained pants, I survey my work one last time, then head back to the farm. There's something in that building. A couple of years ago, during school, I'd been working on my portion of a group project. I was in the library minding my own business when I heard footsteps like 2 or 3 people running. 2 girls barged into the library and looked to have bloodstains on their uniforms. "She's dead. Sammy's dead," one girl shouted, her voice cracking, while the other stood there with a blank face. Immediately, the staff caught up and followed the girls back to where they found Sammy, while another staff called the police and ambulance. During the whole 5 minutes of it all unfolding, I could have sworn I saw a girl standing behind the 2 girls. She had black hair and was wearing our uniform, but I didn't recognize her there. It wasn't many people with black hair in our town. People say it's a curse. A couple of weeks passed by, some still heartbroken over the loss of a friend, others terrified of the building and refusing to ever go in. There were rumors going around about the building now, some saying they heard a girl scream from the toilets, others say they've seen someone in the backstairs corridor. I tried to ignore it all, but when one of the supply teachers started telling stories about that building, I couldn't ignore much longer. During my years at this school, I never had any paranormal experiences, and to be quite frank, I didn't believe in any nonsense like that. I was going about the day making my way to the bathroom during lunch. As I was finished with my business, I turned to unlock the stall door, but it wouldn't open. I chalked it up to being something to do with the janky locks on doors. I was thinking about what I can do to get out when all of a sudden, bam, the lights went out. The light coming from under the door to the bathroom. Terrified, I tried to shuffle under a cubicle door to get out. When I stood up, even in total darkness, I could see the outline of a girl standing in the mirror. The next thing I heard still haunts me to this day. "Are you scared?" Within seconds, I'd kicked myself up and hurried away from the bathroom. I heard the same voice laugh. After that horrifying experience, I refused to go in the building because every time I went near it, I could hear her laugh again like she's waiting for me. The teacher was found dead in the same toilets he was in 30 years ago. Security footage showed him walking to the building, but he looked like he was being forced, like something was dragging him. We couldn't see it on camera. Whatever it was like, the screams echoed through the audio of the cameras, and so did the laugh of the girl, along with the faint voice. "Are you scared?" If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As always, I find these stories that I read to you from different subreddits on the Reddit website, and I always leave a link in the description, so that way, instead of watching gameplay through the video, you can read along if you'd like to. That said, let's get into the video. The man with the top hat. When I was 10, I used to live with my parents in my grandmother's house in the middle of nowhere, but on the Navajo Reservation on Arizona. The place I used to live in was my graduation grandmother's land on a base of a mountain and mesas. There was a lot of creepy shit that has always happened in that part of the reservation, especially on that land. One night, my parents, brother, and I were getting ready for bed because it was 10 p.m. at night. When it was 10:15-ish, I had fallen asleep after doing the nightly routine. The creatures outside had their routine of terrorizing my family on the land at night when they're in bed or getting ready for bed. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up after a nightmare I had about my family and a creature hunting us down one by one. I remembered staring at the ceiling due to being half asleep. This one event had scared the living hell out of me because I never had sleep paralysis or no movement after waking up. It happened to me before. After a while of not being able to move, when I was able to, I looked over to the doorway which looked out into the living room. What I saw is something that I would never be able to explain due to never seeing it before. I was used to the routine rules of what happens at night, which this wasn't part of any of the rules. What I had seen that night was a tall figure, slim, and had long arms and legs. What I noticed about it wasn't the long fingers it had, it was the hat it was wearing. It looked like as if it was from the time when men used to wear top hats back in somewhere in the 1890s or 1900s. The figure had been standing over my sleeping father for God knows how long. When it noticed I wasn't asleep, the thing had turned its attention towards me. When I blinked, it wasn't in the living room. When I was looking for it in the dark, since my eyes had gotten used to the dark, I didn't see it anywhere until I looked at the door that was supposed to be closed to my grandma's room. When I saw a man there, I quickly covered myself with a monster-high blanket that I had, and had my whole body from head to toe wrapped in the blanket due to fear of it, what it would do. I never noticed I had fallen asleep by doing that and was waken up by my father in the morning telling me to get up and chop wood. Now, there are some new rules added to our routine for what to do if the man with the top hat shows up. Don't look at him or he will get mad. If you saw him, you didn't. Ignore his presence as if he was never there. Don't give him attention. And last but not least, don't call his name. I think I'm done with tarot cards. This morning I wanted to give myself a reading with a deck of tarot cards I've had for a few years. I cleansed my room, myself, and the deck with sage before and after the reading. When I did my reading with the 6th card, which is supposed to represent unexpected events, I got the 13th card of death. I finished the reading and then organized my cards and went to go do my workout for the day, weightlifting. I got done one set, so maybe like 20 minutes after my reading, and my mom was screaming for me to call 911. A motorcyclist had crashed and was at the end of our cul-de-sac, barely conscious, and there was something yellow about 10 meters away from him. My dog that I've had for the last 10 years had been cut in half by this guy's bike. What I saw in the middle of the road was the bottom half of his body, and I had to grab his legs and put him on the side of the road with his other half. The motorcyclist was okay, just a little banged up. I went back to my home for a little bit so I could collect myself after the ambulance and police arrived. I had come back to the end of the neighborhood after the cops left to retrieve his body because they had thrown him in the ditch on the other side of the road, assuming so that no one had to see his mutilated body. I had to pick up my dog's guts and place them in the box before I could even put his body in there. Yes, I had gloves on. The smell and the feeling and the sight of everything was just horrific. His body was cut clean in half and was spread out about 30 meters apart from the other half. The motorcyclist had to have been speeding tremendously. The limit is only 35, but a lot of people speed down this road. And it's a narrow country road where I'm from. The sight of my dog's blood pool on the corner of our property and the blood smeared across the road is just sickening and heartbreaking. When I picked up his lower half, I saw that his leg had been scraped to the bone and his guts and organs were spilling out. The blood trail was about 40 meters long and it was all my dog's blood. The cyclist had some scrapes, a road rash. I'm glad the guy's okay, but I hope no one ever has to witness something like this, ever in their lives, and I sure as hell will not be touching those tarot cards anytime soon. The Thing by my house. I am not going to use real names for privacy reasons. I will use Mike, Jake, and Phil instead. This happened about a little over a month ago. So I live in the middle of nowhere in Colorado near the Utah border. I love to go on walks and enjoy the outdoors. There's a canyon about a 10-minute walk from my house. On recent hikes in the canyon, I found animal bones and tracks down there. I've been hunting most of my life, so I know what animals we have in our area. It was a few days before my little brother's birthday, so my little brother wants to go camping for his birthday. Sadly, for family reasons, we couldn't, so we decided we would camp in the yard. We go outside to make the tent and get stuff ready for my little brother's friend to come over. After about 20 minutes, we have everything set up and we go to get Jake. After picking up Jake, we went to the store to get some stuff for s'mores. Got back to the house and ate dinner that my aunt made for us. We hung out next to the fire until it got dark, then we had s'mores and laid down for the night. Mike and Jake were out in minutes, so I went back out to look at the stars. I was out there for about an hour when I heard footsteps on the gravel road that goes in front of my house. Nobody walks this road at this hour, so I thought it could be a deer or something along those lines. I brushed it off, and about 5 seconds later I heard a coyote howl, and then another one, and another. I quietly crawled back to the tent to see Mike and Jake are pale white and looking out the window of the tent. I tried to see what they're looking at. At first I didn't see anything. Then there was some movement just across the street from the telephone pole about 40-ish yards away. It was what I thought to be a coyote. It was hard to tell with it being so dark. The boys were really scared and whispered to me that we should go inside. So we slowly got up and crawled out of the tent. I watched as the things slowly got close to the house. Mike and Jake were going in the door and I was on the porch a few feet away from the door when I seen it cross the road coming into the light. I could see it clearly now. It looked like a coyote that was hit by a car. Its limbs were mangled and it was covered in blood. I ran inside and locked the door. The boys were in the kitchen. My aunt and little sister were asleep. Jake and Mike went to bed shortly after that, and I stayed up all night to make sure it didn't try to come in. The next day, I told my uncle what happened, and he told me it was more like a skinwalker. It would make sense since it sounds like the Native American stories I used to hear growing up. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As always, I find these stories that I read to you from different subreddits on the Reddit website. And I always leave a link in the description. So that way, instead of watching gameplay through the video, you can read along if you would like to. That said, let's get into the video. The Watcher of Willowbrook Hollow. The main road out of my shit little hometown of Willowbrook Hollow is a literal dead end. That's not some metaphorical mumbo-jumbo. It was during a particularly torrential spring when the road got washed away like sandcastles in a hurricane. But instead of fixing the damn thing, they just slapped up a grim dead-end sign, like a middle finger to all who approached. A warning, they said. A sinister omen, if you ask me. Now, don't go thinking there's no escape from that godforsaken town. Oh, there is. But you gotta backtrack, retracing your steps like a damn fool. And the locals, oh, they get a twisted kick out of it when hapless travelers get all turned around in their little piece of hell. You ain't going forward, stranger. It's a dead end. You better damn well turn around and head back. The gas station attendants would smirk, delivering the line like it's rehearsed. Hell, they've even made a buck out of that warning, selling it on some freaking shirt. Of course, some folks, those poor clueless bastards, they don't quite catch the humor in it, and they sure as hell don't find it funny. Most of them listen to reason, albeit reluctantly. But then there are those foolish souls who think they know better, those who choose to defy the ominous signs. That's about the time they learn the stark and horrifying truth. The road wasn't just obliterated by the rain. No, it's what lies beyond, shrouded in darkness like the devil's secret. A clearing guards the boundary. A clearing guards the boundary. A moat of sorts, but no castle to protect. Instead, it's the entrance to a twisted, dark forest, a domain where locals dare not tread. Folks talk of a ghastly entity they call the Watcher, an apparition that feeds on fear and despair like a glutton gorging on souls. A malevolent, shape-shifting creature that takes on different guises, luring unsuspecting victims deeper into the accursed woods. As the years passed, the stories evolved into more horrifying tales. Some say they've spotted a towering shadow with eyes ablaze, stalking silently like death on the prowl. Others whisper of a mournful woman, her tears a siren song, beckoning wanderers to their doom, only to fade into the abyss when approached. But the forest itself is a living, breathing enigma, a realm of twisted reality and deceptive illusions. Very trees move and dance, paths shift and change, and the air echoes with eerie sounds. It's like stepping into a maddening nightmare, where even the bravest souls lose themselves, wandering for hours, plagued by unholy whispers and maniacal laughter. And for the poor souls who scoff at the dead-end sign and dare to drive through, they meet an even grimmer fate. Their vehicles break down like clockwork, stranding them in the heart of the darkness. Some claim to hear a faint voice calling their names, a seductive lure into the woods as their desperation grows. None who ventures too far in the Watcher's clutches ever returns to tell their tale. Some reckon they're trapped in a perpetual maze, tormented endlessly by the malevolent spirit. Others believe they merge with the Watcher, adding to its wicked might. The locals, well, they've got the good sense not to challenge the boundaries of that godforsaken dead end. They respect the domain of the Watcher and steer clear of the cursed road and haunted woods that lie beyond. Those fresh-faced newcomers, or passers-by, might scoff at the legend initially, but they soon realize the grim truth. The Watcher ain't no mere myth. So, the dead-end road stands as a sinister monument to the town's darkest secrets, a warning to outsiders to heed the locals' wisdom, and a constant reminder of what's lurking just beyond the edge of town. If you ever find yourself near that dreaded dead end, do yourself a favor. Turn your tail around, because if the Watcher catches a whiff of you, you're as good as lost to the shadows. I saw the afterlife. It's not what you think. My name is Evan Richardson. I'm 25 and have a beautiful wife and 3 children. I've been a devout Christian my entire life. I won't bore you with my life story, as most of it is irrelevant. But you should know I served in the Navy SEALs for 8 years during the war on terror in Afghanistan after 9/11. I thought I'd seen hell. Constant deadly shootouts and insane pressure, indescribable war crimes committed by my comrades, the unfathomable way the enemy sent children as suicide bombers and murdered civilians. It made me want to commit a few war crimes of my own. All of these things made me hate Afghanistan and war in general, but every time I left there, I saw myself going back for another tour of duty. Every 6 months I spent there, I got more and more used to eliminating the enemy, watching my comrades die, and shooting children suicide bombers. I became detached emotionally. I used to tell myself I wanted to leave, but I realized it was my humanity saying that. There was no room for humanity here. I began to enjoy my time in Afghanistan. The adrenaline, the action, the power. You could get away with whatever you wanted, and it felt good to get revenge on those who killed your buddies. I realized why my old comrades had done what they had done. Starting my 4th tour, I became invincible. I was a high-ranking soldier and led several operations eliminating high-value targets. Some looked at me with disgust when I executed a surrendering soldier, but most respected me. I had killed 15 people 3 months into my tour. I was invincible. That was until I took an RPG round to the stomach by some random terrorist as we were exfilling from an operation. At first I thought it was one of my buddies, but then my buddy, Michael, began screaming. I looked down and then the pain hit. The pain of a rocket passing through your entire body, searing everything. I fell out of the chopper, and the last thing I heard was Michael yelling, "We got a man down. Richardson's hit bad." Blackness. For what felt like hours, I saw nothing. I contemplated heaven and hoped to everything I got there. Then I saw a bright flash of Nothing. There was no bright flash. I woke up in a chair and across the table from a well-dressed entity with no hair. It wasn't human, but it wanted me to think it was. It said, "Evan, I know you're confused, so let me explain. You are not in hell or heaven. Your soul is in the in-between." I tried to talk, but realized I couldn't say a word, or move from the chair. To put it simply, we created your species as a global project to preserve our own species. We face many problems as your species lacks constant war, and we wanted to preserve our species if the worst came to worst. So we bioengineered our ancestors and put them on your already life-filled planet. They evolved into you, and you will evolve into us. Now we need something to do with your souls, and trust me, there's a lot of you. So, instead of you going to heaven or hell, we capture your soul and harvest it for energy. At this point, I was confused beyond comprehension, but I did have one thought, which was, waste this kid. So I tried to, but I couldn't move still. It then said, "Goodbye now," and that was it. I couldn't say a word as my soul dissolved into energy. If you're on Earth, please find the alien's energy blends and bring us back. It's burned for years in here. My friends and I stayed at a haunted ski lodge. It was the middle of winter, the perfect time for a ski trip. My friends and I decided to venture into the snowy peaks of the Rocky Mountains. After an extensive search, we found a charming ski lodge nestled in the heart of the mountains. Little did we know, our dream vacation was about to transform into a chilling adventure. The ski lodge, named Whispering Pines, had an old-world charm about it. Its wooden structure, blanketed with a thick layer of snow, stood out against the backdrop of the towering mountains. Upon our arrival, we were greeted by the lodge caretaker, a genial old man with a twinkle in his eyes. His warm welcome in the lodge's cozy ambience quickly made us forget the freezing cold outside. Our first day was filled with fun and laughter as we spent our time skiing and exploring the breathtaking surroundings. However, as night fell, we began to notice strange occurrences. Unexplained noises echoed through the lodge. The temperature dropped significantly, and we felt an eerie sense of being watched. One of my friends, Jane, was the first to see the apparition. She described it as a woman dressed in old-fashioned ski gear, her face obscured by a frosty mist. This sighting sent a wave of fear through our group, but we tried to dismiss it as a trick of the mind. The following days were filled with more sightings and strange happenings. Doors would creak open by themselves, ski equipment would mysteriously move around, and the chilling whispers of a woman could be heard in the dead of the night. Despite our initial skepticism, we had to accept the undeniable truth. We were not alone in the lodge. Determined to unravel the mystery, we decided to speak with the lodge caretaker. He revealed a tragic tale of a young woman named Emily, an avid skier who had stayed at the lodge decades ago. She had ventured out into a snowstorm and was never seen again. Her spirit, he believed, was still attached to the lodge, her love for skiing keeping her tethered to the place. The revelation was unsettling, but it also brought a strange sense of peace. Emily was not a malevolent spirit, she was just a fellow ski enthusiast, forever bound to the slopes she loved. We decided to stay, respecting Emily's space and continuing to enjoy our ski vacation. The rest of our trip was a mix of thrilling ski adventures and eerie encounters. It was indeed a haunted ski lodge vacation, but not the terrifying experience one might expect. Instead, it was a unique journey that taught us about the enduring power of passion and the mysteries of the unseen world. We left Whispering Pines with unforgettable memories, a chilling tale to tell, and a newfound respect for the spirits that might be dwelling in unexpected places. In the end, our haunted ski lodge vacation turned out to be much more than just a getaway. It was an adventure that blurred the lines between the living and the dead, between fear and fascination. It was a trip that we would remember, not for the terror it induced, but for the unique experience it offered. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As always, I find these stories that I read to you from different subreddits on the Reddit website, and I always leave a link in the description, so that way, instead of watching gameplay through the video, you can read along if you would like to. That said, let's get into the video. The Haunting of Whispering Pines. Deep within the uncharted depths of the forest, there lived a man named Samuel. His humble abode, tucked away from the prying eyes of civilization, was a solitary cabin, surrounded by towering trees and an eerie silence. Samuel had chosen this isolated existence to find solace and escape the chaos of the outside world. One mist-laden morning, Samuel peered through his window, his eyes widening with terror as he noticed a peculiar arrangement of sticks just outside his doorstep. He could sense an unnatural energy emanating from them, as if they were placed there with a purpose. Fear gripped his heart, for he knew that the forest was rumored to be a haven for dark magic and witchcraft. Unable to resist his morbid curiosity, Samuel cautiously stepped outside, his footsteps a mere whisper in the damp undergrowth. As he approached the stick formation, a shiver ran down his spine, and a foreboding presence seemed to envelop him. Suddenly the sticks began to writhe, twisting and contorting themselves into grotesque shapes as if they were alive. A cold wind howled through the trees, and the once tranquil forest transformed into a sinister realm. Samuel's heart pounded in his chest as a cacophony of unearthly whispers filled the air. He stumbled backward, desperate to escape the encroaching darkness that loomed before him. In the blink of an eye, the sticks converged and solidified, forming an ominous gateway. From within the portal emerged a terrifying demonic creature. Its eyes glowed like burning coals. Its jagged teeth glistened with malevolence, and its twisted limbs moved with unnatural grace. Samuel's blood ran cold as the creature fixated its gaze upon him, its presence suffocating the air around them. A voice echoed in his mind, a cacophony of torment and despair. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground, mortal," the creature hissed, its voice drooping with malice. "Your soul shall be my prize." Samuel's survival instincts kicked in, and he turned to flee, stumbling through the dense underbrush as the creature pursued him relentlessly. The forest seemed to conspire against him, branches reaching out like gnarled hands, thorns tearing at his flesh. Desperation fueled his every step, but the creature was unrelenting, its unearthly speed closing the distance between them. Just when Samuel felt the creature's icy breath on the back of his neck, he stumbled upon a forgotten shrine, hidden deep within the forest. With a surge of desperate hope, he lunged towards it, his trembling hands grasping a rusted dagger that lay atop the shrine. Summoning his last ounce of courage, Samuel turned to face the demonic creature, his eyes blazing with defiance. With a primal scream, he plunged the dagger into the creature's chest, a burst of black smoke billowing forth. The creature let out a bone-chilling wail, its form dissipating into the ethereal abyss. As the forest fell silent once more, Samuel collapsed to his knees, bloodied and battered but alive. He had survived the encounter, an ordeal that would haunt him for the rest of his days. From that day forward, he knew the forest held ancient secrets and lurking horrors that were better left undisturbed, and vowed to never again venture into its depths, for fear that the dark forces that dwelt within would come for him once more. "I desperately need advice. Please hurry." About a week ago, my wife began displaying a myriad of strange manic behaviors. I realized that something was abnormal when I woke up one morning with her standing over me, just watching. When I asked her if everything was alright, she spoke to me with words of adoration and expressed her obsession with me. It was like she fell in love with me all over again. Some might say how lucky I am to have such a bright spark rekindling my marriage after 17 years, but I assure you it's not like that. For the remainder of the day, she wouldn't leave my side. Anytime I tried to sneak off to breathe some unshared air, I heard her frantic footsteps stamping the floor as she searched for me, screaming my name. At first, her neediness was charming and slightly amusing, but when I had to use the restroom to take care of business, she began beating on the door with tears in her eyes, begging me to let her in. I grew concerned, even after all the years spent together. I think about the way she watched me at that moment with great discomfort. In just 2 days' time, life became hell. At night, she would wake me up as soon as I crossed over and demanded that I wait for her to fall asleep before getting in myself. The only issue being that she quit sleeping altogether. If it wasn't her physically keeping me from falling asleep, it was the threats of what she would do to me if I did that kept my eyes pried open. All Sunday night I laid in bed watching her stare at me. I wasn't allowed to turn over because she requested that she see my face. By the morning I was delirious, a total madman. My salvation was my alarm. I got out of bed and, in total synchrony, she got up with me. I walked to the closet to grab my work clothes with no intention of actually going. There was a hotel a few towns over. I planned on checking in to get some sleep and call every doctor in the area to find out what the hell was going on with my wife. She asked what I was doing as if she hadn't seen me get up for work for the past 2 decades. When I told her where I was going, she stared at me with confusion as if she had no concept of what work was. After telling her that I had no choice and I needed to get to work, she curled her fist and flattened me with power I didn't know a 120-pound woman could have. For the next few days, I only got out of bed to relieve myself. My wife always watching. I was a prisoner in my own home. The sleepless nights deteriorated my mind. Work blew up my phone, but I wasn't allowed to answer unless I wanted to suffer the consequences. On the final night of the charade, I shut my eyes, my body forcing sleep upon me. When she gave me a gentle nudge to wake me up, I snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I jumped out of bed, ran out of the room. Outside in the shed, there was a 20-ounce claw hammer hanging from my workbench. It was going to be classic tale if she drove me to it. When I opened the shed door, I fell to my knees, my beautiful wife's body laid on the blood-stained floor, entirely mutilated. Fear still frozen in her eyes. My beautiful wife that had given me the best years of my life. My beautiful wife that was supposed to be in my arms as we grew old together. Upstairs through the bedroom, the horrendous thing staring down at me. I want to go to the authorities, but I'm terrified that whatever it is inside my house impersonating my wife will suddenly take off, leaving me alone to explain the remains in the shed. I don't see a way out of this, and I'm writing in fear of what's going to happen when I go back in the house. I desperately need advice and fast. Now it's calling my name. Until I figure out my next move, I need to go inside and obey. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. He's watching you. I hesitated before entering my bedroom, an unsettling feeling gnawing at the pit of my stomach. The air grew thick and suffocating, as if someone seemed forced moved within the confines of that room. A shiver crept up my spine as I reluctantly stepped across the threshold, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was cloaked in darkness, the only source of light emanating from a feeble night lamp in the corner. Its pale glow seemed feeble, unable to penetrate the malevolent shadows that danced upon the walls. I strained my ears, hoping to dismiss the unease as mere imagination, but there it was, a sinister whisper, barely audible, yet unmistakably present. A cold draft caressed my skin, raising goosebumps in my arms. I turned to leave to escape the clutches of the room that seemed tainted by an otherworldly presence. But as I reached for the doorknob, it rattled violently, as if held by an invisible hand. Panic seized me, my fingers trembling as I released my grip. With a surge of courage, or perhaps desperation, I turned back to face the room. And there, at the foot of my bed, stood the embodiment of my worst nightmares. The demon, its grotesque form contorted with malice, its charred skin plumbed with skeletal frame, its eyes two fiery orbs that burned with the unholy fervor. Long razor-sharp talons extended from its clawed hands, ready to rend flesh with a single swipe. The demon's presence alone sent shivers down my spine, but it was its face that etched itself into the recesses of my mind. Its visage was a twisted mockery of humanity, a haunting fusion of animalistic features and twisted flesh. A mouth filled with jagged teeth grinned menacingly, exuding the putrid stench that permeated the room. Its eyes, deep-set and malevolent, pierced through my very soul, as if it relished in my fear and despair. Paralyzed with terror, I watched as the demon lurched forward, its movements inhuman and unsettling. It emitted a guttural growl, a sound that resonated through my bones, and took a step closer. Each breath I took was tainted by the demon's presence, suffocating me with its malevolence. As it drew nearer, its hideous form twisted and contorted, its limbs elongating and warping with each agonizing second. The room seemed to pulsate with darkness, the very fabric of reality unraveled in its presence. I could feel its putrid breath upon my face, its eyes boring into my soul with a sadistic hunger. In that moment, I knew escape was futile. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, a prisoner to the demon that resided within my bedroom. Its presence consumed me, its intention clear, to torment, to feed upon my fear, and to claim my soul as its own. As the demon's talon closed in, his malicious grin widened, a cruel triumph glinting in its eyes. Darkness engulfed me, and the room echoed with my final scream, forever trapped within its only domain. From that day forward, the room stood as a grim reminder of horrors that can exist within the sanctuary of our own homes. It serves as a cautionary tale, a chilling testament to the existence of malevolent forces that lurk just beyond our perception, waiting for the opportune moment to claim their unsuspecting victims. I saw a ghost girl. Hello guys, I want to share a real incident that happened with me when I was 8 or 9 years old. One day I was playing with my friends in a playground, and there was one house near the playground where no one lived for a long time. That house always looked dark and kind of scary. Some teens went into that house and was making a ghost sound to scare us. We were kids, so we got curious from where the sound was coming from. We ignored and kept playing after some time. The teens called us to see inside the house. To scare us, they wrote things on the wall and put some red color stain on the floor. One of my friends called her father, and we went inside. It was nothing, but I was scared of AF, because, I was a kid. After all that, I went home at night. My family, we used to sleep all together. My dad, sis, and me. At night, everyone was sleeping, but I was awake. I don't know what exact time it was. I was staring at the window when this happened. I saw a blue thing coming out of the window. I was scared as hell. It was a girl in a white dress. Her legs were backwards. She was coming at me very slowly, and I was very scared, and I put myself in the blanket and felt asleep. Nothing happened to me in the morning. I told my parents, but no one believed me. I don't know if it was real or not, but it felt real. I still remember how that girl looked. What do you guys think? Was it a hallucination? Or was it real? Whispers in the Shadows, a terrifying encounter with the Skinwalkers. Strap in, my friends, because I'm about to take you on a bone-chilling journey into the realm of Skinwalkers. This tale comes from my own harrowing experience, an encounter with a creature that defied all logic and left me questioning the very fabric of reality. It was a moonless night, deep in the heart of a dense forest. I was camping with a group of friends, seeking adventure and a break from the monotony of everyday life. Little did we know that our desire for excitement would lead us into a nightmare beyond our wildest imagination. As we sat around the campfire, exchanging ghost stories and laughter, a sense of unease washed over me. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and eerie stillness settling upon the land. It was then that a distant howl pierced through the night, sending shivers down our spines. Uneasiness turned to fear as we realized we were not alone. Eyes darted through the trees, catching glimpses of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the fire's glow. Whispers of dread filled the air as the unsettling truth dawned upon us. We were being watched by the dreaded Skinwalkers. Legend spoke of these supernatural beings, shapeshifters who could assume the form of any animal. They possessed dark magic and were said to be cursed souls trapped between the realms of the human and the animal. The forest became their hunting ground, and we were their unwitting prey. As the night wore on, the Skinwalkers grew bolder, taunting us with their eerie calls and glimpses of twisted forms. Their haunting voices echoed through the trees, mimicking the cries of lost loved ones, and driving us to the edge of insanity. We were trapped in a living nightmare, our fates teetering on a precarious edge. In a desperate attempt to escape, we fled through the forest, our hearts pounding with fear. But no matter how fast we ran, the Skinwalkers matched our pace, their unnerving presence always at our heels. It was as if they were toying with us, reveling in our terror. Hours turned into eternity as we stumbled deeper into the heart of the forest, our minds teetering on the brink of madness. The trees seemed to twist and contort, branches reaching out like bony fingers, eager to snatch us away. The very air grew heavy with malevolence, suffocating our hopes of survival. Just as hope began to fade, we stumbled upon an ancient stone circle, a relic from a forgotten time. With no other options left, we huddled within its protective embrace, praying for salvation. The Skinwalkers circled us, their glowing eyes fixated upon our trembling forms. Their whispers filled the air, a cacophony of ancient languages and dark incantations. But then, as if by some miraculous intervention, a brilliant light pierced through the darkness, banishing the Skinwalkers from our presence. A figure emerged, clad in radiant armor, wielding a sword that shimmered with otherworldly power. It was the Guardian of Light, sent to vanquish the evil that had plagued our souls. The Guardian fought valiantly, striking down the Skinwalkers with each swing of their blade. Their power was unmatched, and the creatures retreated into the shadows, their malevolence subdued. With a final nod, the Guardian vanished, leaving us in awe of their heroic presence. We emerged from the forest, forever changed by our encounter with the Skinwalkers. The horrors we had witnessed would stay etched in our memories, a reminder of the thin veil between the ordinary world and the realm of the supernatural. We had survived, but the chilling realization remained. The world was not as safe as we once believed. So heed my warning, dear readers, and tread cautiously in the depths of nature's embrace, for there are forces that defy comprehension, lurking in the shadows, ready to ensnare those who dare to venture too far. The Skinwalkers are real, and their presence serves as a chilling reminder that darkness can lurk, even in the most serene of places. The Whistle. When I was 15, my parents went on a business trip to LA, so I was pretty excited to have the whole house to myself. I ordered pizza and watched a horror movie. After I finished watching the movie, I went up to my room and put on my blue hoodie, because my room is very cold and I always had to wear a hoodie or a sweater. After I put on my hoodie and some pants and got under the warm blanket, I was about to fall asleep, but then I heard some whistling. I thought this was strange because the area I lived in was safe, but thought nothing of it and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up and ate pancakes and bacon, and then I heard the whistle again. I got angry and grabbed my taser and gun and went outside to look, but no one was out there. An hour later, I invited my girlfriend Brittany and my friend Spencer to come spend the night with me because I was freaked out. We ate McDonald's and watched Scream, and went to bed at 10. Around 3, Brittany and Spencer woke me up and said that they keep hearing whistling outside. I got scared and told them that I kept hearing it too, and they said that they also heard it the past couple of days. We looked outside and saw a man wearing a black hoodie and pants and wore a black mask and started whistling. We phoned the police, but when they got there, he was gone. We gave them a description of the man, but they never found him. I told my parents about it, and they said that they will come home after the call ended. My friends, and including my girlfriend, said that they keep hearing whistling at their houses, and then I heard the whistle and looked back, and there he was staring into my house from the window. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As always, I find these stories that I read to you from different subreddits on the Reddit website, and I always leave a link in the description, so that way, instead of watching gameplay through the video, you can read along if you would like to. That said, let's get into the video. The doll. I was walking home from school with Minecraft on my mind. I was wondering what I was going to build with my friends when I hopped on the server and the yard farm pulled up next to me. The driver opened his passenger window and threw a sack in my direction. I barely dodged the bag as it was only a few inches from me. I got angry and yelled at the Ford driver. The driver floored it. I picked up the sack off the ground, and as I opened it, I was very surprised to see that it was a baby doll. But this doll was all scratched up and missing paint from parts of its face. At first I was terrified, but then I realized that moment that my 13-year-old sister would love this gift. You see, my sister, Nicole, was autistic and 3 years behind the average girl her age. Nicole loved finding random toys and fixing them, either selling them to pawn shops or on Craigslist for cheap. Nicole loves the thrill of fixing something and giving it a second chance. I thought Nicole would love this as a good way of getting some peace and quiet in her house today and maybe tomorrow. I stuffed the doll in my school bag and continued walking home. 10 minutes later, I was crossing a bridge to enter my neighborhood. My neighborhood was very normal. I had neighbors who I've known my whole life. This was a very safe area to raise a family. Nothing bad really ever happened here. My neighbor, let's call him Joe, was walking his dog as he does every single day. I stopped and pet his dog. I thanked him and started walking again. I was looking around, and I had a feeling I was being watched, which is not normal. I swear there was something just watching me walking home. I stopped in my tracks and pivoted my feet to look around. There was houses, cars, and trees around me. I saw something looking at me across the street. I whispered, "What the fuck?" As soon as I said that, thing just vanished. I took a deep breath and told myself, it's going to be okay. I started walking again. I finally saw my house, and I saw Nicole playing with her new doll she fixed a few days ago. I was walking up my driveway, and Nicole ran up to me and hugged me, saying, "Yay, you're home." I replied, "Hey sissy, I have a present for you." She smiled so bright and said, "Really?" I opened my bag and gave her the doll she ran to her little workshop where she fixes the toys. I walked in my front door and set all my school things down. I yawned, telling myself I should take a nap before Mom gets home. I walked upstairs to my room and laid on my bed and slowly saw blackness. Soon I woke up hearing my sister open my door, and she throws the doll at me and says, "This doll is scary. Where did you find it?" I told her I found it in a garbage can. I figured if I told her I got it chucked at me, she replied, "Please take it back. There's something wrong with it." I didn't understand but nodded in compliance. I just thought I would hang on to it. Maybe she will want it back tomorrow. I put the doll in my closet on the shelf by some books and a few old toys from my childhood. As I closed the closet door, I heard a thump inside my closet. I stopped and looked inside, but eventually I just closed the door and walked away to go fix dinner for Nicole and I. Nicole asked if I got rid of it. Thought she already wanted it back, so I told her what I did with it. Her eyes shot wide and her breathing got heavier. And then she asked, "Why did you keep it? It's evil." I looked at her with confused eyes and just said, "Okay, well, it's in my room if you ever want it back." She nodded and got up from the dining room table and cleaned up her plate from dinner. Around 20 minutes later, I was getting ready for bed when I heard a whisper coming from the closet. I barely heard it, so I kept getting ready for bed. Not even 10 seconds later, I heard Nicole scream bloody murder. I ran out of my room ready to fight an intruder. I stormed in her room and saw her sitting in a circle of salt. She told me to enter the circle. I asked why, but she grabbed my arm and said, "The doll." When giants devour ships. Deep in the heart of the vast ocean, where sunlight barely pierces the surface, lurks the sinister secret. Legends whispered among sailors speak of monstrous sea creatures, ancient and unfathomable, whose existence sends shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. This is the tale of the night when those creatures emerged from the depths, hungry for more than mere fish. A group of seasoned sailors embarked on a daring voyage aboard their sturdy vessel, the ocean's jewel. They were bound for uncharted waters, driven by their insatiable thirst for adventure and discovery. Little did they know that the ocean's depths held a treacherous secret, waiting to claim its next victims. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow across the vast expanse of water, the sailors beheld a sight they could never have imagined. Enormous shadows slithered beneath the waves, darkening the depths with their ominous presence. Unsettled whispers among the crew quickly turned to panic as the colossal sea creatures emerged. These behemoths possessed a chilling beauty that masked their malevolent intent. Their serpentine bodies, adorned with luminescent patterns, glowed ominously in the darkness. Tentacles extended from their massive frames, writhing with an otherworldly grace. The creatures possessed a power that defied comprehension, a power to make even the mightiest vessels disappear without a trace. As the ocean's jewel sailed closer, lured by both awe and curiosity, the sea creatures encircled it with predatory precision. Their movements synchronized, as if choreographed by some invisible force. Waves surged and crashed against the ship's hull, causing the crew to stumble and grasp desperately for stability. Suddenly, the water erupted in a swirling maelstrom of chaos. Tentacles thrashed and coiled around the ship, the vice-like grit cracking the once sturdy wood. Panic consumed the sailors as they fought to free themselves from the clutches of these ancient sea beasts, but their efforts were in vain. Within moments, the ocean's jewel was swallowed by the abyss, disappearing beneath the churning waves. The sea creatures, having sated their insatiable hunger, receded into the depths once more, leaving only silence and dread in their wake. Word of the ill-fated voyage spread among sailors, a cautionary tale of the dangers lurking beneath the tranquil surface. Even the most intrepid seafarers heeded the warning, steering clear of those unholy depths, where monstrous sea creatures awaited their next opportunity to claim unwary souls. And so, the legend of the creatures that made big boats disappear persists, a chilling reminder that the vast ocean holds secrets beyond human comprehension, a realm where the line between fascination and horror becomes blurred, lost in the imperial embrace of the deep. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to another one of my videos. As always, I find these stories that I read to you from different subreddits on the Reddit website, and I always leave a link in the description, so that way, instead of watching gameplay through the video, you can read along if you'd like to. That said, let's get into the video. The Haunting of Hotel Delamar. Once upon a time, a small town shrouded in darkness, there lived a young boy named Ethan. Tragedy had struck his life when a devastating fire engulfed his family's home, leaving him as the sole survivor. Haunted by the memories of that fateful night, Ethan was determined to find his family, or at least some answers, in the eerie Hotel Delmar. Rumors whispered through the town about the hotel's sinister past. Ethan's desperation overshadowed any fear he felt. Armed with a flickering flashlight and a heavy heart, he stepped into the hotel's dimly lit lobby. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, as if the walls themselves held secrets. As Ethan ascended to the first floor, he noticed peculiar paintings lining the hallway. Each portrait depicted a family, their eyes hollow, their smiles twisted into sinister grins. Unease crept up his spine, but he pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. On the second floor, the atmosphere grew colder, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Ethan's heart raced as he stumbled upon a dusty room filled with old photographs. To his horror, he recognized his own face in each picture. The people surrounding him were strangers. Confusion and fear consumed him, but he couldn't turn back now. With trembling hands, Ethan reached the third floor, where the air grew heavy with a suffocating darkness. The sound of distant whispers echoed through the corridor, sending chills down his spine. As he cautiously opened a creaking door, he found himself in a room filled with mirrors. But these mirrors were different. They reflected not his physical appearance, but his deepest fears and insecurities. The fourth floor beckoned Ethan with a foreboding presence. The walls seemed to close in on him, and the floorboards groaned beneath his weight. In a room at the end of the hallway, he discovered a dusty journal. The pages were filled with his own handwriting, detailing his darkest thoughts and secrets. Panic consumed him as he realized that someone had been watching him, documenting his every move. Summoning every ounce of courage, Ethan ascended to the fifth and final floor. The air grew thick with malevolence, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows that danced along the walls. In a room at the end of the hallway, he found a locked door. Desperation fueled his determination, and he searched for a key. Finally, in a forgotten corner, Ethan discovered a rusty key hidden beneath a decaying carpet. With trembling hands, he unlocked the door, revealing a room filled with photographs of his family. Tears streamed down his face as he realized the truth. His family had perished in the fire that claimed their home. But the horror didn't end there. As Ethan turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in a cracked mirror. His eyes were hollow, his smile twisted into a sinister grin. The hotel had consumed him, revealing the darkness that lay dormant within his soul. In that moment, Ethan understood that the hotel was not just a place of nightmares, but a manifestation of his own inner demons. He had lost not only his family, but also himself in his relentless pursuit of answers. Trapped within the hotel's walls, he would forever wander, a ghostly reminder of the horrors that lurked within. Broken Anne. It was a midsummer night, and it was a hot night in Arizona. I worked as a coroner, and I've seen many things that just never bothered me. Dead people were just bodies to me, so the job came easy. The sight of some of the things I've seen were just natural, no matter how gruesome they were. The one case that really bothered me was an old woman named Anne, as we came to know her from identification found in the house. No one had seen or heard from her in almost a few days, which was unusual due to her neighbors sending the police to do a wellness check on her. They found her dead, lying on her side. It looks like it was a stroke, but they couldn't be entirely sure. And then my coworker and I were sent to pick up the remains. When we arrived at the small house that should have been condemned due to its poor condition, we walked in the front door, and there she was. I thought it was going to be a pick up and grab usually kind of thing, but I was so wrong. The position she died in was something out of a horror movie. She was lying on her side, but her back was contorted in such a way that it seemed almost unreal. Her neck and head were further back, with a look on her face which chilled me to the bone. A look of excruciating pain or horror. Her arms stretched out as if she was reaching for something. Fingers looked like claws, bony arms with barely any muscle. I'm not sure what happened with me, but I immediately froze in fear at the sight of her. It was time to put her in a bag. We couldn't just, because of the shape she was in. I couldn't stop looking at her face. sunken in cheekbones and eyes caved in, no teeth at all. It was just scary to me. We were unable to zip her up and couldn't just snap her back into place since the rigor mortis had long set in. We had no choice but to white sheet her, put her on a stretcher, take her as is and into the back of the truck. Unfortunately, I was the lucky one to ride in the back van. I had to keep her from falling off since the awkward position. As the truck started driving, I did my best to strap her down, but it required hands-on stability. I held on to her bony arms like I was holding on to an old tree branch as the white sheet started to fall off. I kept trying to keep it in place, but due to my partner's bad driving, the sheet had slipped off, and that's when I had enough. Her face became visible and was staring me right in the face. Her gray, sunken-in eyes staring at me with that painful bored expression looking me in the eyes. Holding her as still as possible, even as I started to shake at my grip on her. My breathing got heavier by the second each time I would look at her and try to look away. My mind began playing tricks on me. It was as if she was exhaling in my face, and the smell of death was heavy, mere inches from Anne's horrific face. I quietly began to cry just as I was experiencing my first ever panic attack. I couldn't bear to stand it any longer as I screamed at my partner to hurry up. My fear of this woman had set in, dizzy and close to fainting, glancing at her through my peripheral vision. 10 minutes later, we arrived at our destination, and I immediately got out of the back door of the truck and fell to cold pavement, catching my breath while shaking uncontrollably. Everyone who was there had known me to be one of the strongest willed people, but that right there was my breaking point. I cried as I caught my breath. One of the men there had come for me and taken me away, but just as we were walking inside, I took one last look at Anne's body, and it just so happened to lean sideways off the stretcher and fall to the floor of the truck, which prompted her neck and arms to snap at impact. I quickly dropped my head as the other workers there rushed to cover her up and take her body off from the truck. I quit my job a week later due to my anxiety from the experience and how I worked at the warehouse. Still medicated and taking it easy these days. The look of Anne's face still haunts me always will. I shudder at the thought and at sight of any body these days, so funerals is what I try to avoid. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Once upon a time, in a small town surrounded by dense woods, there lived a group of adventurous children named Lily, Max, and Jake. They were known for their insatiable curiosity and their love for exploring the unknown. One day, they stumbled upon a forbidden place deep within the woods, a place that was said to be cursed and off limits to anyone who dared enter. Despite the warnings from the townsfolk, the children couldn't resist the allure of the forbidden. They believed that the stories were merely tales to scare them away, and they were determined to uncover the secrets hidden within. Ignoring their parents' pleas, they set off on their daring adventure. As they ventured deeper into the woods, an eerie silence enveloped them. The air grew heavy, and the once vibrant foliage turned dark and twisted. The children's excitement began to wane, replaced by a sense of unease. But their curiosity pushed them forward, deeper into the heart of the forbidden place. Suddenly, a bone-chilling wind swept through the trees, whispering haunting melodies that sent shivers down their spines. The children's hearts raced as they stumbled upon a decrepit cabin, its windows shattered and its walls covered in strange symbols. Against their better judgment, they entered the cabin, the footsteps echoing ominously. Inside, they discovered a dusty book, its pages filled with cryptic incantations and demonic drawings. Ignoring the warnings etched within, they began to recite the incantations aloud, unaware of the dark forces they were awakening. As the last word left their lips, the cabin trembled, and the ground beneath them cracked open. From the depths emerged grotesque, nightmarish creatures, demons that had been imprisoned for centuries. Their eyes glowed with fury, and their twisted smiles sent chills down the children's spines. Terrified, Lily, Max, and Jake tried to flee, but the demons were relentless. They chased the children through the woods, their claws scraping against the trees, and their guttural growls echoing through the night. The once peaceful forest transformed into a nightmarish labyrinth, trapping the children in a web of terror. With each passing moment, the demons grew stronger, fueled by the children's fear. Lily, Max, and Jake realized that their curiosity had led them down a path of darkness, and now they were paying the price. Exhausted and desperate, they huddled together, their tears mixing with the dirt on their faces. In a final act of desperation, the children made a pact. They would face the demons head-on, sacrificing themselves to save their town from the horrors they had unleashed. With trembling hands, they recited a counter-incantation, hoping to banish the demons back to their prison. But their efforts were in vain. The demons laughed, their voices echoing through the woods. As they closed in on the children, the last thing Lily, Max, and Jake saw were the demons' menacing grins before they were consumed by darkness. The town mourned the loss of the brave children, forever haunted by the consequences of their curiosity. The forbidden place in the woods became a cursed reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond the boundaries of their imagination. And so, the demons remained, their malevolence seeping into the hearts of the townsfolk, forever reminding them of the tragic fate that awaited those who dared to venture where they were not meant to go. Don't scare your friends. I learned this the hard way during a trip with friends to a tropical vacation. I get a kick out of scaring my close friends. I'm not messed up in the head, it's just something I enjoy doing. During this trip, I was brainstorming ideas on how to really scare my friends in my hotel room. I couldn't think of any ideas until I remembered the fake phone number app. I started texting my friends specific things they'd be doing during the late night hours just to see their reactions, or what they would do. I did this every night to the point they started to get worried and talked about notifying the authorities. At that point, I stopped because it was supposed to be a joke and nothing serious. Tonight is the fifth and final night we are here. We were all at a bar drinking with each other. At around 1:15 a.m., they all decided to drive back up to the hotel. I didn't want to go with them because I was still having a great time and didn't want the night to end so young. They tried encouraging me to come with them because I didn't have any other ride home, but I assured them that I would get home safe because the hotel was only 2 miles away. I told them I would walk. They were upset about it, but eventually agreed to leave me here and head back to the hotel. At around 2, I got a notification on my phone from a number saying hello. This was odd as I haven't given my number out to anyone tonight and it was also 2 in the morning. I checked the number and realized that it was the same number I was using to mess with my friends. A chill went down my spine. It's impossible for anyone other than myself to use that number. I checked the app I was using to mess with my friends. Maybe I accidentally texted myself? I've had more drinks than I can count, so I didn't doubt it. But no, I hadn't used the number since yesterday. I was sent another text from the number 4 minutes later saying they all left you alone. I thought this could have been one of my friends who found out I was messing with them. Maybe they were trying to get me back. I called all of them, but not a single one picked up. They were all passed out drunk in the hotel. I looked around the bar to maybe see if someone was looking at me or on their phones, but everyone in the bar was under the influence and engulfed in the bar's excitement. At this point, I decided to leave and make my way home because getting home sooner is better, right? Wrong. I shouldn't have gone alone. I went outside and the fog from the ocean nearby was consuming the entire town. You couldn't see 20 feet in front of you. I still decided to start the walk home. About 5 minutes into my walk, I get another text. Walking home all alone? I read it and immediately jerked my head around to see if anyone was nearby watching me walk home. The fog was too thick for my eyes to see more than 20 feet away from me. I started to speed walk because I was getting paranoid. 7 minutes go by and another text appears on my phone screen. Turn around. My blood runs cold, still walking. I turn my head behind me and see nothing. For a brief moment I thought it had to be someone messing with me, until I started hearing rapid footsteps slapping the wet pavement behind me. I sobered up instantly and sprinted. The footsteps were so rapid they sounded inhumane, almost like an animal running on all fours. I turned no hair and very skinny. It was running with so much force. My mistake. It was at least 6.5 feet tall, no hair, and very skinny. It was running with so much force that its arms were flailing around with no control. This thing must have been running faster than 20 miles per hour, but I couldn't really tell. There was so much adrenaline running through my system. I bolted into some bushes that lined both sides of the road. I couldn't hear anything after that for a while. Maybe someone had slipped something in my drink and I was imagining all of this. I hoped that was the case. I waited there for what felt like forever, until I hear more wet footsteps coming from my direction. I knew my brain couldn't have been making this up no matter how much I had to drink, so I stayed completely still, in fear of what would happen if this thing saw me. The footsteps go silent. I get one more text from the number. I see you, in all capitals. My phone illuminated the shrub where I was hiding. I finally got a good look at the thing. It was much taller than I thought, around 7 to 8 feet tall. It was bald, but what I hadn't noticed before was that where hair should have been was replaced with hundreds of tiny black eyes. It had no face either, just pale, almost gray skin. Its body was covered in what looked like thousands of thick veins under its cold, damp skin. I bolted out of there as fast as my body would let me, but I could hear the steps behind me, getting closer and closer until a large cold hand ripped me off my balance from my shoulder. I think I was unconscious for at least 12 hours before I woke up in this cold, dark room where I am now. The ground is slimy and moist, and the smell is unlike anything I've ever smelled before. It makes me nauseous. I tried calling my friends, loved ones, and 911, but none of my calls are going through. I'm scared and alone. I'll update when something happens. If you liked that video, then like the video. If you're going to bed soon, sweet dreams. And if you have a full day ahead of you, I hope it goes well. Thank you for taking your time to spend on watching one of my videos on my channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy. Tinder date that turned weird by the unnamed one. I went on a Tinder date some time ago while I was adjusting to a new city I had moved to. I didn't really know anybody there, so I used some online dating apps to see the dating scene around town. I landed one from a girl that seemed just like an artsy hippie type of girl. We had a few exchanges through the Tinder app and then decided to meet up for a drink. I picked her up at her house and she greeted me at the door and gave me a hug. She said the name of the local bar she wanted to go to for us to chat and get to know each other. I told her I would drive and proceeded to my car. The first red flag I noticed was when I walked to my car and opened the door. She had just followed me to the driver's side and was standing behind me staring. I looked at her blankly for about 15 seconds and asked her if she was going to get in. She said, "Sure, I would love to," and went a long way to the passenger side around the back of the car. Since I had just met the girl, I figured she maybe smoked some weed or something, as I had kind of got the vibe she was a bit of a stoner. As I was driving to the bar, she talked in a very low voice, almost as if she was trying to whisper. I'm not hard of hearing or anything, but I had to ask her to repeat herself several times just so I could make out the full sentences she was saying. When we got to the bar, I made sure we got a seat closer to the back, away from most people, just so I could have a little quiet in order to hear her. The conversations honestly carried on as normal from this point, and it was actually a fun time for the time being. We talked about different things we were interested in, and she did bring up that she did recreationally use weed and a few other tripping substances like shrooms and such. I'm not much of a fan of these, but at least it made me relax in the back of my mind to think maybe she was just high off marijuana, and that rationally explained some of the out there behavior. Granted, I had a few drinks at this point, so I was honestly not thinking straight. I asked her if she was wanting to go to my place after drinks, and she agreed. When we got to my place, we had a few more drinks, and then she started talking about her jewelry. And this is where it gets weird. She told me her jewelry was her big secret, and it defined her. When I asked her why it was so important, she said, "I'm actually Anastasia, and I was never killed in Russia. My jewelry is my link to my past." It was hard for me to take that serious at this point with how much I drank, so I kind of challenged that statement using the little bit I knew about history. At this point, she freaked out and started yelling at the top of her lungs about how I don't respect ancestors and history. Then she got quiet and tiptoed right up to me and grabbed me by the neck. She then brought my face eye to eye with hers while still holding my neck. She says at this point, "I am shaman and I will curse you. My ancestors have destroyed many people and you do not respect that. You are from oppressive ancestors and they will be punished." And she put her hand in a whiskey glass and made a cross on my face and kissed my forehead. At this point, I started to sober up a little. I talked to her into calming down, telling her I was only joking. Then she slowly started getting back to normal. Then she started talking about her cat fetish. She tells me she has a list of people who she tames that act as cats. I'm not about judging people on their fetishes, so I listen in. She then tells me all the things she does to them and starts acting like a cat in my living room. If she had not yelled at me earlier on, I might have almost been turned on by it. My red flags in my head were tingling like crazy at this point, so I just listened and tried not to set her off. She noticed sage on my kitchen counter and asked me to let her light it, and bless the house. Side note, I use sage to make my house smell better occasionally. It's kind of a ritual I like to do, but it's mine and my own. Something I take very personally and I like to do it myself. I tell her no, she can't light it, and it's my thing to do on my own. Then she freaks out, telling me I'm a horrible human being and screaming all over the place. I tell her I can take her home now, and she runs to the door and goes outside. As I get outside, she is screaming at the top of her lungs that I'm a horrible person and I should go die. I tell her she can walk herself home then, and I go back to my place and lock the door. She then starts banging on the door hard in about 10 minutes, saying she left her phone in there. I grab her phone off the kitchen counter and open the door to hand it to her. She tries to barge inside and I block her with my forearm. She then acts like she is about to punch me. I just hold my ground and tell her she is not coming in. She screams she wanted the whiskey bottle we were drinking from. I told her hell no, because I paid for the damn thing. I slam the door at that point and lock it. I hear her bang on the door for a minute. I then hear her footsteps going down the stairs. I waited about an hour and then went walking outside to see if she was still hanging around. I didn't see her, nor did I ever see her again after that. I know this is probably not the scariest encounter ever, but for the next few nights I was creeped out, always walking around the area I lived to make sure she wasn't hanging around. I honestly hope she is okay wherever she is, but I hope to never see her again. The End. The End by Pantarium. Every day I come to the park and feed the birds, watch couples holding hands while kids ride on bikes followed by their dogs barking, giving chase as a form of play. This is my sacrifice, my youth, my happiness, my sacrifice. But you know that already, don't you? Frank turns to the man sitting beside him who's feeding the birds also as he smirks and turns to Frank. "I know it all so well. You've said the same thing for the past 62 years, and sadly I must say, it's the same swan song I love to hear." Frank smirks himself and picks up a handful of seeds and scatters them on the ground. "Yeah, the same song I never get tired of singing. But you know what I see here? What I really see?" The man turns to Frank. "What do you really see, Frank?" "I see the sacrifice of my youth, the life I could have had, the wife I would have spent my time with, the smiles I never worn, the chance to eat cotton candy and fly kites like all these good people here." The man looks down, hanging his head, and crosses his fingers into one another. "I figured you'd say that." Frank drops the bag of seeds that was left on the bench and wipes a tear from his eye. "I see the life I never got. But what do I really get? Loneliness stamped on a badge of bravery, friends long since gone, a pain I can't shake and a hole in my heart that won't ever be filled. You know, someone once asked me, would I do it all again? No, I wouldn't." The man exhales heavily and slowly stands to his feet. "I know you wouldn't. You spent your life killing, giving orders that you passed down to hundreds of men that lost their lives in the war. You're one of the killers, Frank. Looking down at his black polished shoes, Frank begins to cry softly, remembering his friends he fought in the war with. I never got the chance to smile for real. It was always just a mask to wear just so the rest of the world wouldn't see my sacrifice. The man stretches for his hand. Your sacrifice is recorded, Frank. It won't ever be forgotten. I promise you that. It will be remembered and echoed through life itself, to remind you of how guilty you are for killing so much and sending others to their own demise. That is your legacy, Frank. Stretching out his own hand, he takes a grasp of the man's arm and pulls himself to his feet. Where am I going? The two slowly walk away from the park bench and into a darkness that appears not too far from them. Frank takes one last look back at the bench to see his body hunched forward and motionless, and the man replies, Hell. The end. Thanks for taking the time to listen to one of my videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy. She's Home by Pantarium. Chad sat in his car distraught and crying harder than he ever had. Head on the steering wheel after hearing the news his wife Barb had a sudden brain aneurysm at work. He had just come out from the hospital and sat in the parking lot for over an hour handling calls from family members and friends. After he had finished the last call, he started his way home, but the one question in his mind kept repeating, how am I going to tell Bobby, his 7-year-old daughter? He wouldn't be able to do it alone. Calling his sister-in-law Tina to meet him outside the house, and with no hesitation she agreed, and shortly after they met at the corner of Chad's home street. He gets out of the car, leaving it parked around the corner along with Tina's. The two hug, tightly sobbing, taking a few minutes to collect themselves and figure out how they would break the news. The few minutes turned to an hour, which exceeded to 2 hours. Night has come, and Chad starts to build up his composure, readying himself to do the almost impossible task he had ever come across. As he started to walk up the pathway with Tina beside him, hand on his shoulder, they could see Bobby walking around in the house playing with her dog. Chad walks in, and Bobby comes running and hugging him tightly, and still unaware of the news of her mother, he smiles, hiding his pain as she goes to hug Aunt Tina. Then she goes on to play, and Tina whispers in Chad's ear, You sure you can do this? Chad nods his head, holding back tears and wails of grief. Don't really have a choice, she has to know, he whispers back, taking his time while sitting with Tina and the babysitter that sat with Bobby. A silence filled the entire house as Bobby is upstairs brushing her teeth, getting ready for bed. And suddenly she comes running down the stairs and yelled, Mommy is home from work! Chad chokes on his own water and runs to Bobby. Honey, what are you talking about? She smiles and points at the door. I see Mommy walking up the pathway. She's home. Chad's eyes start to fill with tears of sadness while looking at his daughter. Baby, I got something to tell you. Mommy had... Looking down, breaking eye contact with Bobby when suddenly there's a shadow walking by the window. Chad looks to his right and can see a silhouette on the stone porch making its way to the door. His heart skips a beat and his blood runs cold. Tina and the babysitter standing behind them witnessing the same thing, all speechless as Bobby smiles looking towards the door. Honey, that can't be Mommy, because Mommy is... The door handle starts to jiggle lightly as Chad gasps, wiping away his tears, seeing the door is locked, hands shaking as he stands and turns toward the door, holding his daughter back slightly behind them. Tina and the babysitter watch in horror at what they are witnessing before them. The handle shakes once more, and 3 slow, heavy knocks start to rumble the door, followed by the door handle shaking once more. Chad slowly makes his way toward the door. Daddy, aren't you going to let her in? Chad quickly presses his back against the door. He carefully peeks over the door's upper window and can see his wife's distinctive dyed blonde hair. Her hair was always needed a touch-up because her roots always showed, and that distinctive feature was how he was able to know his supposedly deceased wife was the one behind the door. Gasping in his fear as he looks at Tina and the babysitter shaking their heads in fear, knowing what Chad is thinking. It can't be her, Chad. Don't do it. Bobby then pushes her dad to the side. Fine, I'll open it. Chad stumbles, shaking from his fear and grief, and is easily pushed by a child. He quickly lunges and picks up Bobby, and yells, No! holding her as he quickly spins away from the door's direction. I unlocked it. Daddy, look! The door handle turns and the door is slowly pushed open from the outside, making a creaking, uneasy sound. Tina and the babysitter run away to the back of the house as Chad closes his eyes tightly, hearing his daughter laugh in his arms. Hi, Mommy. Chad lets out a whimper, keeping his eyes closed, still holding his daughter, and hears his wife's slow, cold, shaking voice. I'm home, baby. The end. Brother, by Pantarium. Janice sits across from her brother in a dark, dim-lit room by the window. She looks up at him as she wipes away tears, and he looks on silent as he's always been throughout their entire childhood into adulthood. I don't know why you come now, Frank. You could have come on birthdays, anniversaries, Mom and Dad's funerals, and where were you? Off doing your own thing as always. I had to take care of everything while you just... Wiping away her tears while her brother looks away, unbothered. I have 2 kids now. They're really beautiful. Yeah, you were an uncle and didn't even know it. I really wish you could have got to know them. My son reminds me a lot of you, though. He's there for his sister, but still has that kind of smart-ass attitude. Frank looks down and smirks as Janice lights a cigarette and leans back in her chair and lets her next set of tears fall down her face while looking at her brother. It hasn't been easy lately, but I try. I'm divorced and raising these kids on my own. I'd ask you to help, but I already know what the answer would be, knowing you. That part of you, anyway. You would have liked them, and I'm sure they would have liked to know their uncle. Frank smirks, nodding his head as he looks out the window, seeing the sun just about to rise. Frank, I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't try hard enough, but maybe it wasn't me, and I'm just accepting all the blame just to save yourself from even owning up to your own life's choices. Poor life choices. Frank leans forward, crossing his fingers into one another while looking at Janice. I can't do this every time, Frank. One day this has got to stop, and you know that. I don't see why you just don't come back. This is harder on me than it is on you, Frank. I do my best, but maybe it's me who should be letting you go. Frank smiles a real smile and nods his head while leaning back in his own chair, and he watches Janice stand up and extends her hands at Frank while sobbing. I can't come back anymore, Frank, because I'm letting go. You understand, right? I have to move on, and so do you. Janice slowly begins to walk towards the charred black door frame and looks back at her brother sitting in the burned chair. Go home, Frank. We'll see each other again, I promise. Take care. Watching Frank stand up and walk towards the window as the sun begins to rise, and the beams of light shine through his translucent body. Frank looks back at his sister one last time as Janice wipes away the last of her tears and watches her brother fade one last time. Goodbye, Frank. Janice slowly closes the door before peeling one last time into the room where her brother died in a deliberate house fire he had set 10 years ago. She wonders still as to why he did what he did. Doesn't know the reason or if it was an accident. All Janice knows is that Frank is now at rest after all the years she would come to visit him on his death anniversary and talk to his spirit in the very same spot. She let him go and freed herself from her guilt that was never hers in the first place. The end. Tim Hates Us, by Pantarium. We lived in this house that our father had bought on a deal that he and my mother couldn't pass up on. It was a 3-story house with a full wide basement and a garage the size of half the house. Plenty of room for my sister and the brother to play, and also a driveway big enough for my basketball net where I would play with the friends I made in the neighborhood. There would be times they would call my house the killer's house or murder house. I heard all the stories, and so did the rest of my family, but we never been into that whole thing since we were all grown as atheists. Ghosts and all those kind of things never scared or bothered us. After a year of not seeing or hearing anything happen in that house, what was there to be afraid of? One night, as we all sat down at the living room eating our dinner while watching TV, everything seemed to be pretty normal. We laughed. Horseplay on the couches while our parents sat with their devices in their hands watching us jump on one another, and my father would jump in and toss my younger siblings on the couch. And just by one loud, sudden crash that came from the master bedroom, the laughter stopped, just like that. We all looked at each other in silence as my father slowly got up and nudged his head toward me. Grab the bat. As he grabbed an iron fire poker, telling my siblings and mother to stay downstairs while we went to inspect what was happening. As we approached the bottom of the stairs, we heard another crashing sound, followed by a loud scream coming from a male's voice. My heart stopped as my father just seemed to grow furious, thinking it might have been a robber who climbed to the side of the house and crept into the window looking for something to steal. More sounds of things being thrown across the bedroom, hitting the wall along with the grunting and an almost painful gasp. We climbed the stairs, ready to swing our weapons at any moment at whoever was in our house. When we got to the top of the stairs, my father in front, he looks at me and nods his head while mouthing the words, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. We charged into the bedroom, expecting to find a burglar, but all we found was smashed picture frames and my mom's collectible antique shelf. We walked around the shattered glass, peeking into the bathroom and behind the curtains, but nothing was found. My dad looks at me and shrugs his shoulders while I poked my bat around the floor, pushing glass aside, and then it happened again, but this time, from the living room where my mother and siblings were. We hear their screaming while the sound of glass smashing is heard throughout the entire house. My dad and I ran down the stairs as quick as we could while at the ready to swing at the intruder, but no one was there to be seen. We find my mother holding the kids huddled into the dining room corner as my dad and I looked to see the TV smashed and the glass coffee table smashed outward, like something literally went under the table and smashed it, which was weird. Who was it? Who was in here? My dad asking my mother, who was shaking vigorously with a pale look on her face, not saying a word. Seeing the look of anger on my dad's face was something else. He wanted to catch who was doing this, but I started to think to myself that maybe this person or thing couldn't be caught. I look at my dad, and his anger turns to confusion as he turns to look at me. I knew at that moment we both thought the same thought of what was really happening here. I turned to look at my younger brother, who was just crying harder than he ever has, while my little sister was calm as still waters. I kneel down, trying to calm my brother down, as I see my sister's hand raise up slowly. I turn to look and see her pointing at the far corner of the living room, and I whisper, "What? What is it?" I stand up, grabbing my bat, and see my dad scratching the back of his head, looking confused. I see just over his shoulder and look toward the corner between the window and where the TV was, and I gasp. Not a normal gasp, but, well, it felt like the breath was taken right out of my lungs when I saw it. I nudge my dad's leg with my bat, and he turns toward me. "What? What is it?" And I point my bat toward the corner of the living room. He looks over his shoulder, and by then, it was visible to all of us. A tall man standing in the corner of the room, like a shadow, its entire body reached from the floor to nearly the top of the ceiling, giving off a dark shade of shadow. My dad drops the fire poker and quickly grabs my siblings and my mother and pushes them towards the front door, which was just around the corner where they stood. I try to catch my breath as I see this shadowed figure swiftly dart across the room and makes a sort of loud sighing sound. My dad grabs me by the shirt and pulls me toward the door, but just as we were about to run outside to safety, this thing lets out a loud exhale of breath and grabs my brother by the wrist. I could see his hand lifting and soft, sort of being pulled, as I see his feet on the floor being dragged towards the shadow, and as he resisted while screaming at the top of his lungs. I quickly used my whole body weight and sort of tackled my brother under his arm as my dad pulls open the door with all his strength, and we managed to run outside to the driveway. My brother crying so hard he can't catch his breath, while my father and mother, holding my siblings, trying to comprehend what had just happened. I stood up and looked through the living room window and see this shadow. Tall shadow darting from room to room as it screams and smashes what picture frames that hang on the wall. I turn toward my family as this thing suddenly stops at the window and looks at us. I look back and can barely see it, but the dark shaded outline of it is still visible. My sister steps beside me and holds my hand, still calm as ever, eerily calmer than she should be. She looks up at me with no expression at all and hugs on my hand. "Tim hates us." The end. Thanks for taking the time to listen to one of my videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you enjoy. My older sister called me. She's been missing for almost a decade. By spooky streets. My older sister Jenny was the golden child. She was beautiful, popular, and had good grades. As I grew older, I began to accept that she was always going to be better than me. That didn't change how jealous I became. Even though I was cold to her, she always greeted me with a warm smile each time she saw me. By the time she was 25, she had already married and had 2 wonderful children. At Thanksgiving, everyone's eyes were on her, never me. We lived in a small town. Everyone knew each other. That's when it came to us as a surprise when we learned that Jenny went missing without a trace. The family was grieving. Her old house became a memorial site. After years of looking, everyone gave up. I missed her sweet smile and her strawberry blonde hair. I even missed all the jealousy I felt when everyone would praise her every Christmas. Just a year ago, I was watching one of her favorite shows as my dog, Penny, sat next to me when I heard my phone ring. An unknown number? I thought out loud. Then held the phone to my ear. Jane? Jane? Hello? Please help me, the voice pleaded. You aren't my sister, I replied, shocked. I hung up in fear. That was not Jenny. I almost completely forgot about the strange occurrence when a few days later I got a call from the same number while I was preparing soup. Jane, I missed you. Come help me, the voice cried. How did you get my number? Leave me alone, I demanded, hanging up. I sat on my couch, tears running down my cheeks. That was not my beloved sister. About a week after I left a bouquet of colorful flowers at Jenny's memorial site. It only took a few minutes before my phone began ringing. What do you want? Quit calling me, I boomed. Jane, I'm inside. Come help me. The voice was more clear. I hung up in pure fear and confusion and ran to my car. That wasn't my sister. I killed her almost a decade ago. I don't know what came over me when I did. I had mixed emotions as I drove home. Suddenly I heard my phone ring. It was the same stupid number. What could you possibly want now? I already know you aren't my sister, okay? Leave me alone, I screamed. Come inside, the voice said calmly. I hung up quickly, rushing into my house. I opened the front door using my key. In front of me stood Jenny. Her hair was tangled and raggedy. Her white sundress was stained with dirt and mud. Her teeth were rotten and gross. And worst of all, she had the most evil look on her face. Jenny? I mumbled. I get it. You were jealous. But there was no need to hurt me, much less murder me. She stepped closer, backing into the wall behind me. I treated you good. I had a husband and kids that I had to leave behind because of your bitterness. I fell to the cold carpet floor. I'm sorry. It was wrong, but I never got to finish. It was too late. Jenny began chasing me throughout the house. I ran as fast as I possibly could at the time until I reached a dead end. It's my turn, Jane, Jenny hissed, and reaching, possibly to strangle me, when all of a sudden she froze. My Doberman stood behind her, blood dripping on the floor, staining the carpet. Jenny fell onto me as my blood-covered dog barked furiously. Good girl, I told her, gasping for air. I decided right then and there I was going to move far away and take Penny with me. I'm now living across the country, and if anyone is wondering, yes, Penny's alive and doing very well. The end. Forgiveness is just too hard. The hole in my heart has only grown since you left. 8 years you were in my life. How could you leave so suddenly? You knew I depended on you. You knew you were the only support I had, but you left me, without even a goodbye. I thought our bond was stronger than that. Things have been difficult since you've been gone. There have been others along the way, and at first I thought they might be able to fill the void. But no one will ever replace you. I will never love anyone like I loved you. Now here we are, 6 years after you flipped my world upside down, and you decide you want to be part of my life again. You sent me a letter you couldn't even take the time to call me. But still, I couldn't stop the tears from rolling down my face as I read your words. I miss you. I want to see you. Please meet me at our favorite cafe tomorrow. I will be there at 11 a.m. I considered not showing, but my heart won the fight over my head. As I stare at you from across the table, my feelings are conflicted. How could I still love you after you abandoned me? But I know what I must do. You walk towards the bathroom, and when no one is looking, I slip the ricin in your coffee. I watch you sip until you finish and tell you I've had enough. As I walk out of the cafe, I hear you beg for me to come back, just like I begged for you all those years ago. I don't look back. Goodbye, Mommy. The Forest by Horror Stories 101. I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have done it. Regret gnawed at my gut. No one had warned me it would be like this. A feeling of dread settled over me. My heart pounded as I bolted forward, stumbling as I slid down a jagged ledge. Panic gripped me, and I held my breath, terrified that the sound of my racing heart might betray my presence to that crazed woman. Amidst the eerie silence, chilling laughter broke out. An eerie female apparition floated past the ledge, her face a deathly white. You've entered this forest. You're one of us now, she uttered with deranged glee before disappearing into the mist. No, no, I whispered in disbelief, my voice barely audible as I tried to reject the nightmarish reality thrust upon me. Yes, it is, a chilling whisper slithered into my ear. Confused, I turned to the mound of dirt beside me, only to be met with the gaze of a deathly white face emerging from the ground. Panic seized me, and my legs refused to move. No, my legs couldn't move. They were rooted to the spot by ghostly hands emerging from the earth, grasping at my limbs, trying to drag me beneath. I fought to break free, my struggles in vain until I managed to wrench myself loose and scramble back in terror. With my heart racing, I fled blindly through the dense forest. Bursting through a thicket, I stumbled upon her again, the laughing woman. Her gaze was fixed on the lifeless body slumped against the tree. Dread washed over me in a chilling wave. The woman slowly turned, her laughter growing more piercing. With a crooked finger, she pointed directly at me, her message clear. A frigid grip took hold of my heart as I pleaded with whatever higher power might be listening. She began to float towards me, her laughter now echoing in my mind. I slowly lowered my gaze to my wrists, strained a deep red. They mirrored the crimson stains on the tree's trunk where the lifeless body slumped, a knife in one hand, its slit wrist sprawled outside. You're one of us, the woman laughed. Regret clawed at my gut as I looked past the woman at the knife in the body's hand. No one had warned me it would be like this. I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have done it. The end. I found a cure for cancer. Pancreatic cancer runs rampant in my family. My father, his father's father, were all plagued with the disease. Not to mention the disturbing amount of my extended family members who developed it and died soon after. It has been heart-wrenching to watch my loved ones suffer in their last months of life. 2 years ago, my brother was diagnosed and died 6 months later. That one hit close to home. I have always been intelligent. For 6 years now, I've been working as a medical researcher, specializing in experimental medicine for pancreatic cancer treatment. The death of my brother sent me into a spiral, and I've been drowning myself in my research since. I eat and breathe it at this point. Last year, I made a breakthrough, combination therapy, my first real step forward, a conjunction of monoclonal antibodies, stem cell treatment, potent vitamin infusions, and targeted chemotherapy delivered directly and solely to the cancerous cells. In vitro studies were 100% effective. Finally, last week we analyzed the results from our first preliminary clinical trial. 87% of our participants were in total remission, free of cancer. My heart pounded thinking about the possibilities. With some tweaking, this had the potential to be a cure for all types of cancer. We submitted our research paper to a prestigious journal for approval. Not even an hour after the paper was released, I received a call. Hello, Dr. Sanders. My name is Jacob Matthews. I am with the United States Department of Health and Human Services. We were sent your research paper submission. Myself and some of my colleagues are very interested in speaking with you about your research. We would love it if you came into our facility to speak. I was elated. It was the following day. I dressed in my best suit, ready to present my findings. Jacob met with me in the front of the building and led me through several doors to the back of the facility. Right in here, he pointed. I entered. The door bolted shut behind me. My heart stopped. The room was filled with my colleagues, members of our research team, all the participants from our study, and even their family members. Their bodies stacked atop one another, each with a gunshot wound on the back of their heads. I felt the barrel of Jacob's gun press against my skull. Thank you for bringing your research to our attention. He spoke with an eerie calmness. Unfortunately, it will not be getting published. Why? I screamed. Why would you do this? It's simple, really. Cancer is money. I heard him pull the trigger. Thanks for taking the time to listen to one of my videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.